Let's talk Tom DeLonge for the moment.
Sure.
So for those who don't know, Tom DeLonge comes out with To the Stars Academy. It's like the science, technology, and arts for-profit company or public ownership company that seeks to not only put out artwork and information out in regards to the UFO subject or UOPS, I don't know what they call it now, but to also technology, meaning to replicate the technology that they're seeing, the phenomena. What do you think about Tom DeLonge? Do you, and I'm asking this in a broad way because I want to give you some latitude in the way that you answer this. I don't know him. I've seen interviews with him on Joe Rogan and some other places. I don't know the read to get on him. And that's why I'm asking this question in this way. I've heard there's been a lot of UFO people who've been going after Tom DeLonge, and I don't necessarily understand why they've been after him to such a degree. Like essentially saying some of the stuff was a hoax and everything else, despite having the Pentagon paper, the information direct link to the Pentagon, despite having the people there to talk to. Some people were still going after him on this. What is with the UFO community and Tom DeLonge? I just thought it was so odd that they went after him for some of the stuff. And it's some people one guy went after him saying that the video that he was showing was a hoax. And I was making a point. It was like, you're telling me that the military person who's on the Nimitz is lying. You're telling me that the pilot is lying. It's like, what do these people have to lie about this particular thing in this case, put their careers and everything else on the line? So I'm curious, that question is two parts. A, what is your perspective or impression of Tom DeLonge? And B, does the UFO community have an issue with Tom DeLonge? And if so, what?
First of all, what is happening here is very complicated and very important. It's been about 2.5 years in the development. It's not trivial. And I'm doing my best to get a perspective on it. We're talking on March the 1st. I'll actually be talking about DeLonge on Coast to Coast AM tonight.
Nice.
I'm going to be doing on Monday, which I think today's Friday, Saturday. On Monday the 3rd, is that the 3rd? Yeah. I'm going to be doing a substantial interview on MUFON TV, MUFON.tv. It's MUFON's television network now. Again, talking about it. On my new website, I say it's new, my fully remodeled Paradigm Research Group website, which is now 21st century site, thank God, after 27 years. I'm going to be putting up material about that. I've already got things up, so a lot more coming. This is a big deal. Okay, that's the first thing. Second, it's not about Tom DeLonge. I mean, he is clearly he is clearly somebody that's helped initiate this, but it's way bigger than Tom. And the focus needs to be more on the total picture than on him personally. He is the spokesperson for the organization he created, but others are going to be the spokesperson for the issue, with the lead person right now being Luis Elizondo. So that's second point. Third point. What we're seeing here is information coming out of the government itself in a more overt way.
Yeah.
And as I've said many times in previous interviews, as we get closer to disclosure, the amount of scrutiny of people worldwide on this subject is just going to magnify. It's going to exponentially increase in a way that was virtually unthinkable in 1975 or 1985. You've got 3 billion people with computers right now, might even be higher. And I forget how many are on the net, but it's a big number, maybe 2 billion, maybe more. And so as we get closer to disclosure, the scrutiny is going to grow. And then with disclosure, the scrutiny is going to go off the charts. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that this is the most important issue in the world today. The implications are staggering. And so as it finally manifests, every word that the government says, everything that comes out of the government is going to be analyzed down to the syllable, the molecule. Everything is going to be scrutinized, and there's going to be plenty of efforts to debunk everything that the government says, which is one of the reasons why I've said many times, everybody's worried about a false flag or this massive manipulation where they give us a load of baloney in order to do $1 trillion increase in defense spending, and basically just lie like hell. I don't think so. But they've gotten away with plenty of lies, but this is not then. This is now. And the scrutiny level, I mean, you're going to have a couple of 100 million people out there with computers able to analyze, look at, refer to, communicate with each other. You've got insiders that could come out and say, wait a minute, that's not true. So if they try to lie, it'll blow up in the government's face, and I think they know that. So we're going to get the truth. The closer we get to disclosure and after disclosure, we're pretty much going to get the truth, and any attempt to get otherwise will be a big mistake. Point number 3. Point number 4. As people, if someone were to go to the Stars Academy of Art and Science website and review their team, their mission statement, and look at the video where they announced the To the Stars Academy on October the 11th,
yeah,
and anything else they want to read about it, there's a couple things they need to keep in mind. One, they talk about the fact they want to raise money and explore a whole bunch of areas. They want to look into anti-gravitic propulsion and new technologies and so forth, all of which are on the table because these things have been discussed in the context of this issue in the U.S. government for decades, right? And everybody's kind of knows there's something going on. Okay, fine. And they very wisely created a public benefit corporation to raise some money to pursue these things and get people involved, which is good. You can't do stuff without money. And so whatever they want to do, they need money. And they've already raised $2.5 million. Wonderful. But what people need to understand is this. This is not quite what it seems. It can't be what it seems. And what do I mean? The U.S. government, well, and by the way, one of the other things they did is they released the first ever gun camera footage from a UAP intercept. And with the pilot, the whole 9 yards, and everybody, huge article in the New York Times and so forth.
Yeah.
And then they revealed in an article in the New York Times that a study was put together under the auspice of Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, and Luis Elizondo ran it, and Bigelow helped with that and did some of the research and blah, blah, blah. And everybody's excited. Oh, they were studying UFOs. Okay, here's the reality behind this maneuver. All right, 1. The U.S. government has been studying extraterrestrial phenomena, crash vehicles, and biological entities every day, 365 a year since 1947, and never stopped, and poured billions of dollars into it, right? So the fact that a study was put together by Harry Reid, and they put that program out there, that, oh, they hadn't been studying it, but now they are for 5 or whatever years, ridiculous. That was a study they had to put together because Harry Reid wanted it, and they had to keep him happy. Yeah. They have never stopped studying it. They have studied it. You can't imagine. Number 2, I don't know how much money To the Stars Academy will raise, but the projects they're talking about, actually maybe trying to get into, are all multi-billion-dollar projects.
I was thinking the same.
To raise that kind of money.
You're talking about electrogravitic devices, like literally. I saw I'm sorry to interrupt. The video that you're talking about, where they gave their announcement, and I think they had like Howard off Elizondo on stage, and they showed a picture of the craft that they wanted to build, and they were like, "We raised $2 million," and I was like, "You're going to need a hell of a lot more than $2 million to build that craft, buddy."
But it doesn't matter. You want to know why? The government's already engineered that craft.
Yeah,
the government has anti-gravitic propulsion. The government has made, I believe, though it's a little harder to confirm, I'm sure, extraordinary progress in dealing with the ET energy systems. So that's already there. And so what? They're going to somehow raise $50 billion and do what the government's already done in B40? I don't think so. So that's something else people can understand. Then another thing. It was a big deal when that first gun camera footage was released. I've been talking about gun camera footage for 20 years. Everybody's excited about it. People need to understand. The government has stacks and stacks and stacks of gun camera footage from intercepts going back to all the way to the 1940s. Not only that, the UK has got them. Soviet Union's, Russia's got them. China's got them. France has got them. UK has got them. Every single developed country that has an air force that actually sends planes up to intercept unidentified bogeys that cross into their territory has got gun camera footage. Why? Because you don't send up a military defense plane to intercept a bogey that you don't know what it is. It could be a military plane from another country. It could be a lost airliner. Could be, and don't film it, and then have the pilot fly back and say, "Okay, can you draw us a picture of what you saw?" I don't think so. And none of that has ever been released, because to release the gun camera footage from these intercepts would blow the truth embargo out of the water overnight. Maybe not one, but 30 or 40 would do the trick. And so again, you see, this is kind of a game, isn't it? It's not exactly what it seems. Here's a piece of gun camera footage, get excited, but they don't say, and by the way, there's 10,000 more of these in the government files, but you can't get them, because that would be violating a national security thing. And so again, what is going on here? Well, there's a couple of things going on. First of all, and Tom DeLong has made this very clear. If you go back and listen in particular, and you need to listen to it several times because it's very drawn out. But Tom DeLong gave the initial opening maneuver in an interview to George Knapp on March the 27th of 2016 on Coast to Coast AM. It was the full 4 hours. The last half was questions. So the last, rather, half one segment was questions. And if you listen to it, and you listen to it enough that you start to put the pieces together, because it's very random, what you will discover is, one, that he was able to connect with insiders because he was trying to, and at some point they decided, fine, you can, right? So exactly who reached out to who is not clear, but it was kind of a mutual coming together. But he had the money to fly around and go places and do things that almost none of the other researchers or activists in this field can do. Yeah. And he had a name and whatever, and so he penetrated, and a thing gets together. And what emerges, one of the things that emerged from this, one of the things that's going on here, is that Tom DeLong is running a public relations program for the CIA and the Pentagon.
Yes.
And I am not offended by that. It's exactly what I would do if I was the Pentagon and I was the CIA. Why? Why would you need a public relations program? Here's the reason. They calculated that disclosures days, the truth embargoes days were numbered. And that's a somewhat more complex story I might be able to touch on depending upon our time. And they knew that obviously not only has the ET issue been pulled out from under the White House and the Congress for a long time, meaning they're not briefed anymore. It's black, all right? So that kind of means they own it, don't it? It's not like the president is sending them emails every couple of months saying, keep the embargo going, guys. The president doesn't even know what the hell they're doing. And the Congress knows even less, which is one of the reasons why trust in Congress is collapsed to extraordinary issues. People think they're ineffective, partially because they've been made ineffective. And so they're sitting there holding on to this thing and knowing that it may not be long before a head of state, possibly not an American president, is going to tell the world there's an extraterrestrial president. And we know what happens the day after that? 10,000 reporters are going to be camped out on their parking lots, right, at Langley and in Virginia at the Pentagon with 10,000 questions about why, what, when, why didn't you? Why did you keep this, alive, blah, blah, blah. And so they're going to take massive heat. And they don't want that because they see themselves as the good guys. And I think basically they are. It was a national security decision. And so what do? You need to get a public relations program going. You need to do something that shows the world's people that you are trying to be part of the solution and not the problem. Now, admittedly, that doesn't mean you're going to be absolved of the entire truth embargo and everything you might have done. But nevertheless, it's, what happens last counts. And Tom DeLong has been chosen to sort of carry this out by being the spokesperson for this PR program, which includes a lot of heavy-duty insiders, which they need in order to back up the gravitas of it all. And so he is trying to make the Pentagon and the CIA look better. I'm happy he's doing that because we don't need disclosure should not be followed by an endless battle of well, and it's an endless, criticisms and angry and lawsuits and everything else. We need to move on. So that's one thing that's going on. The second thing is this, and I've said this many times. Disclosure is the most profound event in human history. It's the biggest paradigm change in human history. And whenever you have change, you have opportunity. And when you have paradigm change, you have buku opportunity. And so not so much at this time, well, not so much in the previous years, where getting into this field like I did means basically a life of penury. Yeah. And you're not going to have any money. You're not going to get a job. In fact, get rid of your family and your wife. You're going to be able to have that either. The closer we get disclosure, the opportunity is going to escalate, right? And after disclosure, it's going to go off the charts. What do I mean? I mean that huge sums of money are going to be made. Vast sums of money are going to be made by people who are addressing this paradigm change as it's about to manifest and after it happens. Massive corporations are going to move in. They're going to set up structures and programs. Research programs emerge out of nothing. And the big money, of course, is going to get the most of it. But a lot of other organizations, not so big, are going to be able to participate. There is massive opportunity. And so, whether you're Elon Musk building chemical rockets that are basically obsolete, or whether you're Milner, the Russian Yuri Milner, putting huge money into SETI, searching for signals that's pointless.
Yeah, that was always weird to me too.
Or Branson. It's all kind of nuts in a way, because these people are billionaires. They know what's going on. If you're a billionaire, there are people lining up at your office to tell you stuff. And the idea that I'm a billionaire and I'm involved in tech and I'm not aware that there's an ET presence. Hell, all you gotta do is read Stan Friedman's books and a few others, and you know that. They already know, but yet they're doing this. Why? Why, chemical rockets? Because they're in the game. They're in the space game. Bigelow's in the space game. Branson's in the space game. And the To the Stars Academy wants to get in all the games. So when disclosure happens and we start to get the real truth, admittedly, the government stuff is much cooler, but they're in the front line to participate in what comes next. In other words, who is going to benefit? Who is going to be the first to get involved in the anti-gravitic technology that may be available to us post-disclosure, and the energy systems and everything else? Well, if you're already in a game, you got a heads up. And what's to be made post-disclosure? Think whatever Musk thinks he's going to make in his SpaceX program and his wonderful PR, like sending a car into space. Yeah. Coolest thing I've ever seen done. Okay, it's the coolest meme ever done. Multiply that by 1,000 or 10,000, and you'll get an idea of what he can make post-disclosure. And so this is positioning, and the Catholic Church is doing it. Yeah. Institutions are doing it. They are positioning for the big event. Some of them are going to be able to take advantage a little early. The Catholic Church is not out there trying to get people to donate to it because of its fairly progressive view on the ET issue. Yeah. But Tom DeLong is. They just raised $2.5 million. They're about to go to the second level. And as things keep unfolding, there's a new New York Times article come out, they'll raise more money. They'll get up to 5, 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 million, enough to be able to maneuver. Yeah. Build an anti-gravitic spaceship? I don't think so. But connect with the government on their anti-gravitic spaceships? Why not? Okay? The people that don't have any of that, what are they going to say? Oh, wow, we want to be part of the game. What have you done? Well, nothing, really. You get my point?
I get your point. I get your point. But what you're making me realize, though, is that the reason why people somewhat distrust him on this? Like, because they feel like he's a mouthpiece, that they feel like he's affiliated with these kind of military types. I guess I look at it as, and not just me, and I don't look at Tom DeLong anyway because I don't necessarily know. I don't know enough about him. It's one of those things of, oh, that's cool that he's releasing this and he's getting information out, and it's cool that he's being a conduit. I guess I don't. I always look at it as from the whole world. I mean, to a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. And if you're working with these guys who are in the CIA, the Pentagon, and everything else, I'm wondering, is that why the community is somewhat distrustful of him on this? They look at it and they say, look, these guys, because I would imagine a lot of ufologists believe that the government puts out disinformation, or if it puts out information in a way to hit them in the knees, where you can discredit, part of it's true, the other part of it's false, that type of stuff. So is it they're somewhat distrustful of him because of the government's history? And then you combine that with he has these contacts within that same government that they're somewhat distrustful of in the way that the government has gone about its affairs on the UFO topic.
The answer is yes. Look, if somebody's been, well, one of the tragedy of institutional lying, which is one of the things that's plaguing the American government right now.
Yeah.
The tragedy of institutional lying, particularly when it goes on for decades, is that when the truth finally shows up, you don't recognize it.
Yeah, you don't believe it.
Tragedy, isn't it? And so, given the record here, I don't blame anybody for distrusting anything the government does now. And so, if they release some gun camera footage, it could be this, it could be that. So the reflex reaction is don't trust it. In fact, go after it if you can, debunk it if you can. Don't trust anybody that's a spokesperson. And obviously, he's raised some money, and that's a really terrible thing. Well, that's something that really irritates me, but I don't blame them. However, look, it's one thing to reflex response. It's another thing to look at it, to study it, to try to understand what's going on. So I invite people to go to the Stars Academy website, read everything there, read the background on all the people, go watch their interviews. There's been a couple of dozen already where they're being interviewed. Elizondo's been interviewed several times. Leslie Kane, one of the authors, Blumenthal, all of them. Read the interviews, listen to what they're saying, right? Listen to Tom DeLong's, earlier interviews, and try to get the sense of it all, right? Try to get the full picture of this, and then say to yourself, is this more disinfo? Is this a scam, right? Well, I have looked at the big picture, and I can say with high confidence that what's going on now is unprecedented. Yeah. Nothing like this has ever happened before. In other words, the truth is starting to arrive, and it's not going to be easy, but people need to sort of shed their well-developed perceptions and biases and try to take it at face value. It doesn't mean they just roll over, but more is coming, and I feel relatively comfortable that this is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, there are some things about it which trouble me a little bit, but not much.
What are the things that trouble you about it? I mean, I listened to The Palette, and I listened to Hal Puthoff's explanation of this was awesome. I mean, I remember Hal Puthoff going all the way back to Ingalls Swan. And Hal Puthoff was explaining some of the behavior of the craft itself in regards to the energy propulsion and everything else. I don't get the feel that Hal Puthoff is lying or Alexandro is lying. They came across as being credible to me. Not to mention it has you could see where the information came from. So I was more inclined to believe what was being said. I wasn't. I guess I'm playing devil's advocate on this slightly, even though I actually believe the information that's being put out.
One of the most important things that I can say about the entire To the Stars Academy effort and Tom DeLong's run up to that effort, but particularly since the announcement on October 11th last year, which is a date that may go down in history, is this: if you listen to everything they're saying and doing, it's very clear that one, they are not violating any non-disclosure agreements or national security oaths. Yeah. Right? They're not releasing any classified material illegally. They're avoiding certain language. They don't like this. They will say UFO. They don't say extraterrestrial. They avoid the term phenomena. They try to keep it in the basis of, clearly an extraordinary thing. Yeah. But literally, when you look at Chris Mellon's statement when he at the announcement event on October the 11th, and when he does the Nimitz chronology, he does everything but say it's an extraterrestrial craft. But they don't go that far. In other words, they are not breaking the law. They are operating within the rules, which is exactly what you would expect the Pentagon and the CIA to expect of a group of people, some recently retired. They're going to sign up to do this program, all right, and cooperate with. And so, and I expect them to stay within those lines for the indefinite future. There is a limit to that though, because I don't know if the Pentagon and the CIA are underestimating us, but the amount of knowledge that we have, collective knowledge on this subject, in the hands of not only just regular people, but also the researchers and activists, is large. Okay. Yeah. And the idea that we're sitting here going, oh, okay, I understand. It may not be extraterrestrial, but it could be just something extraordinary. No. All right. So it's a bit of a game, but that game can't last indefinitely, and it will break. So that's something. And so that's exactly what I would expect. These aren't whistleblowers, right? They're not rogues. Yeah. This is a program that was set up by people inside, some of which had to step back when the WikiLeaks thing blew the thing wide open, when they released the Podesta emails, had to step back, but then others were able to come forward. This is a project that is designed to stay within the rules, educate the public, make the military intelligence complex look better, and to some degree advance the disclosure process, because they kind of know that it's not going to last much longer. Now, there are some geopolitical considerations here. Again, the complexity of the total picture is huge. But the other thing I would add is this: at the pace things are happening, meaning if the next New York Times article, which is slated at any time, there's going to be another footage release at any time. Yeah. And Bigelow, they're starting to close in on Bigelow, trying to get to him, trying to find out about that material that he has, which is not that big a deal. Material is not that big a deal, but it's fascinating. If they keep dropping these things into the mix about every 45 days, the truth embargo cannot sustain it. The only reason the media didn't go completely boom when those two New York Times articles came out. And a lot of people don't understand. Some people don't understand. Again, if they bought the whole fake news crap that's going on right now, the New York Times is just a propaganda operation. I'm sorry, I'm sorry for
gravity. Yeah.
But I don't recall ever seeing, well, it's probably happened, but it's incredibly rare, where not one, not two, but three people get their byline on two New York Times articles in the same day.
Washington Post, Politico, yeah, MSNBC, CNN, all of them.
I don't find 200 articles. I've got 200 articles linked on my website right now to this story. Right? Yeah. You can go to my website and find the media archive, and you can find them all 200 of them. So the other thing that people need to know is that the New York Times did not send out a couple of Woodwards and Bernstein to run this story down. It was handed to them on a silver platter by To the Stars Academy, all right, which had been alluding to it already. And that's fine. That happens all the time. So the New York Times decision was, is this news? Obviously, they thought so because they ran the two stories. But they did more than that. They assigned a regular reporter, Helene Cooper, but then they got Leslie Kane in on it, who may have been the person that brought the story in because she's written on the subject. She's known to be connected to it, but she has a fairly high profile as mainstream. Right. And then the cherry on the ice cream sundae, they brought in Ralph Blumenthal. Why? He has a Pulitzer Prize, and he's been nominated for another Pulitzer Prize, and he's very much interested in the subject. And so that gave the story gravitas. The New York Times went out of their way to make sure these stories, boom, hit hard, had plenty of gravitas. And I assure you they didn't do that because, well, we're done with that now. Right. They know they have Watergate times 1,000 sitting in their Pulitzer Prize list right now. And they're going to run with it. The only reason it didn't blow even more quickly is that this is all happening within the most extraordinary period of political chaos in America. A 5-ring circus, clown cars everywhere, and they're barely keeping up with it. Every other day, there's another bizarre story, and that has prevented it from going. It's okay, no problem. The To the Stars Academy is not going anywhere. There's more stuff coming up. At this pace, I don't see the truth embargo making it through 2018, and I am planning for that.
Let me ask you this. Tom DeLonge, I remember seeing one of the interviews where he, and this gets into some of the other stuff with John Mack, and even with Stephen Greer. Why? I always thought it was odd that both people have contacts. Like there would be certain people who are in this field that would have certain internal contacts, either military, either some kind of corporations or something to that effect. You may have some people who worked in aspects of NASA. People will come on front of the camera and say, I did this, or military personnel. They have two drastically different views of this, the paradigm associated with this. Like, so one goes to the extreme saying, you know, everybody is peace and love and everybody is space brother and there are no, you know, bad aliens. Yeah. And Tom DeLonge takes, if I am not mistaken, this kind of opposite approach of there are some rough things that the public needs to swallow. If both of these guys have contacts, is it, how can I say this? I guess what I'm asking is, it seems that they're leaving them to their devices in regards to what they already believe. Like, so if the person believes that there are no bad aliens, they just let them go with that particular belief that there are no bad aliens. If the other guy believes that they are, they just let them go with that particular belief that they are. It doesn't seem like they're, I didn't get the feeling from listening to Tom DeLonge that Tom DeLonge, either had any kind of experience himself directly, but it also felt like what Tom DeLonge knew, it was just kind of emboldened. It wasn't necessarily changed based on what they told him, if that makes sense. And that's by the Joe Rogan interview where he was like, I know things. They were shocked at the stuff that I knew. And it's like, but why do you believe you know things? And he wasn't a contactee. He wasn't any of these things. For all intents and purposes, he knows what he's read and I guess the people he interacted with.
Tom DeLonge's been studying the field for a long time. He's read hundreds of books. He's an autodidact.
Yeah.
Right. So he has absorbed a good deal of the material that's in the public domain. Right, thousands of books. Now, the problem with that is that probably more than half of all of that material is wrong.
That's what I'm getting at. It's like, how do you know what's true and what's not in that particular category, particularly when you have Greer, who also has contacts, saying the opposite, and Tom DeLonge is saying, and look, I'm not saying DeLonge is wrong on this. In fact, I'm not saying either one is right or either one is wrong. I guess I'm showing this comparison of how they're coming at this from two drastically different points of view. Yeah.
This is the number one exopolitical question, and there are a bunch of exopolitical questions, I assure you. But at the top of the list, probably the most important is good ETs or bad ETs. That's a pretty important question that needs to be answered. I'm pretty sure the answer is way more complicated than good or bad.
Yeah, me too. I don't think. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We know. You mentioned some of the researchers who feel very strongly that the ET collective, the whole thing, is very positive, very good. Don't worry. Tom has spoken to the other side of this somewhat. The most problematic thing that he has said, one can find, if they go to Coast AM for their archives. I haven't found it on YouTube yet. It may be there. And they go to the March 27, 2016 show with George Knapp.
Yeah.
The 4-hour that I toured to. Man, you have to subscribe. It's $3 a month. I encourage people to do it. The most problematic thing he said occurs in the last 20 minutes of the 3rd hour and then the first 10 minutes of the 4th hour. So in that period, if someone goes right to that and just listens, Tom goes off on an interesting tangent. And in the space of that 20 minutes, he basically is saying that the ETs, we don't call them ETs, we don't call them aliens, we call them the others. And the others were basically the small g gods of our history, that they have been factionalizing humankind for all these thousands of years, and then getting them to fight each other over religious differences, literally creating religious wars.
Yeah.
And he repeats that and implies that it's even occurring up until the modern time. This is very problematic to me on many levels. The first thing he implies, he sort of implies, I mean, you can't dispel the possibility that this is something that's been presented to him by the contacts he's had in the Pentagon and the CIA, the advisor group and what have you.
Exactly.
But it's not absolutely clear. Tom has made it clear that he read all of Sitchin's books, he read all the ancient stuff, he's been there, gone through that, he's read all these people. And it's possible that he has formulated that view, right? And as you said, the insiders in the military intelligence complex have not dissuaded him from that view. And so maybe because they didn't, he's going, well, that's like saying it's true. And that's what he believes. On the other hand, it could be what he's being told.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. If in fact the military intelligence advisors that have been working with him, and it's more than 10, have actually told him that that is in fact what the ETs have been. God's manipulating humankind to create us to fight endless wars, right? Mostly over religion and factionalizing us. That is a huge deal. However, it's worth noting that aside from that interview, he's really kind of gotten away from that. He didn't really get into that with the Rogan interview, which didn't go well. It was probably something he shouldn't have done. But he really hasn't gone there since. And none of the other guys have gone there, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very suspect there. And I'm watching that very closely, I assure you, because if that meme starts to come out of the mouth of Luis Elizondo or Hal Puthoff, and we start hearing the same things, then I am going to be one, and I'm going to have to do it, but I'm going to say, look, y'all out there with your 500 million computers and everything you know, I want you to pay attention to that. I want you to go after that. I want you to dig deep and do everything you can to see if you can confirm what the hell they just said.
That would be mind-blowing.
Knows it's not to be true. We want to hear from you, because that is dangerous stuff.
Agreed.
All right? Really dangerous stuff. We cannot afford to be played in this. And at this point, I'm not too concerned. But what Tom has said in that area, now again, I'm not someone that believes all ETs are good. What I believe is that they have an incredibly complex agenda, and that when we will learn that agenda, which I think one day we will, we're going to find some of it really cool. Some of it is and some of it's a little troubling. All right. And there's going to be some things that disturb us. How could it be otherwise? But the idea of ultimate evil ETs that are literally manipulating us and making, that's not just sort of disturbing. That's damn right evil. Very suspect there. So I'm going to be watching very closely, and we'll see how that goes.